So yeah, the best looking person in our family at the moment is the dog, because she got hers done last week. So yeah, we're pumped for this. So it's all good.
Morning, Gani.
Morning, David.
How are you, sir?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Great. Congratulations to the results this week. Amazing.
It's fantastic. Really, really good.
So you've got a load of potential customers on the call today, Gani, so make sure you get them booked into your restaurants, right?
Absolutely.
Don't let them get away without spending their money.
Absolutely.
So Gani's just opened, 10 restaurants in 10 days, Gani, or something like that?
Yeah, still going.
Well done.
Thank you.
So Cornwall's good, Chris. Was it Devon or Cornwall?
Oh, yeah, no,
I think you're on mute, Chris.
Yeah, so Cornwall's amazing. First guest arrive at the property tomorrow after obviously our 3 or 4 month break. So we're fully booked now, which is really cool up till the end of October.
Okay.
But it's always the way that just as you're about to leave the house, you find a load of jobs that need to be doing, isn't it? So we think, oh, it's all good. And then it was like, oh, this needs to happen. So we ended up spending a little bit longer than expected. And it was interesting just being around Padstow, some of the restaurants and businesses opening just for the first time, really since the lockdown. And there was definitely a little bit of apprehension, I suppose, on that sort of on the 4th, really. So I think the Saturday, but certainly come sort of Wednesday, Thursday, people being, really respectful and it got busier. So I think, and a lot of the business owners were really, I guess, really pleased to see a lot of the customers and support back in the town. And it's mixed emotions, isn't it? Because, some of the population, that are vulnerable or don't rely on tourism have been potentially a little bit anti about tourists coming to the area for obvious reasons. So it is not that it's split in 2 halves, but you could definitely feel a slight uneasiness in the first couple of days. So, but we were okay. We were good. So we enjoyed it.
Fantastic. Morning, Joy. She's on mute.
Morning, Nigel. I've seen you creep in.
Crept in. Under the radar, Chris.
Under the radar. You've changed since you haven't got that bridge of Henley and all that, the flowing of the Thames. You're so much more prominent back in those days, Nigel.
I can change that very, very quickly, Chris.
I 100%
it just looks
believe
really
you.
naff now, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's all changed,
Hi, Nige.
Hi, Joe. You all right?
Good, you?
I thought of you the other day.
Did you?
I did. I saw a new Bentley.
Did you?
Continental. Boy, are they a gorgeous looking car.
Oh, if only, hey?
Yeah. It's only because of the name, Joe.
Of course.
Yeah.
It's not the classiness, Nigel, no.
I'm not going to comment on that one.
Morning, Nick. Welcome from Valencia.
Good morning, everyone.
How are
Excited
you?
to be here.
Is the sun shining in Valencia, Nick?
It's already about 28 degrees, so I'm a bit hot, but we'll manage.
Yeah.
Happily swap with you, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, I was in London up until a week ago, so I'm not complaining. But if I see sweat dripping down my face, it's partly because I'm nervous, but partly because it's hot.
Morning, Stella.
Hello, David. How are you?
Great, lovely to hear from you. I haven't seen you for ages.
No, I'm still around.
I thought
You're busy, Stella?
Hello, Nigel.
Hiya, you're busy?
Yes.
Good.
I will answer your email. I've got a surprise for you.
I'll hold you to that. I like a surprise, especially on a Friday.
Yeah. Hello, everybody.
Morning.
Morning.
Right, we'll just wait for a couple more minutes for everyone to sign on, and then we'll get moving. Morning, Gary. Gary's on mute.
Morning.
How are you, sir?
I'm good, thank you. Got a baby due next week. So,
Wow.
yeah, Wednesday, cesarean. So right now it's about trying to get all my homework done to sort of free up some time next week. And I also had a dog that had an operation this week on her leg. So there'll be two I'll be looking after next week. But no, things are good. Things are good. I've had a busy 4 weeks in leading up to reopening.
I bet you have. I bet you have.
Had some interesting challenges with a national chain, but we delivered well and we come out really strongly. So yeah, it's good for us.
Fantastic.
Waiting for a cup of tea.
Yeah. Okay, I think it's just about 9:30. So what I'm going to do, guys, is I'm going to mute everyone, and then we'll kick off. So good morning, everybody, and a very warm welcome to the Business Owners Forum. If you haven't been on one of these things before, let me just explain what it's all about. So the Business Owners Forum is a group of business owners, as you probably think. There's over 120 people, I think, in the group now. And the purpose of the group is for business owners to learn from each other, because, you know, the faster we learn, the faster we're able to grow our businesses. But it's also a forum where you can meet business owners, and a lot of our business owners do business together. So it's a great place for business development as well. And on that note, if you do want to meet anybody in the forum, either put your details in the chat box or join the Facebook group. And then you obviously can converse with other people as well. So the forum's hosted by the Henley Coaching Partnership, which is myself and 3 other coaches, and I'll get them to introduce themselves. So Joe Bentley, good morning. Just say hello, Joe. You're on mute. Okay, Chris, good morning.
Good morning, David. Good morning, everybody.
And Nigel Nelms, good morning, Nigel.
Good morning, everybody.
So guys, if you hear anything that you want to follow up on as a result of this meeting, or you want introductions to anybody in the forum, please give us a call. We're here to help. So it's David, Joe, Nigel, or Chris at thehenleycoachingpartnership.com. Drop us a line. So every week or every 2 weeks we have this session, and what we're trying to do is put stuff on for you that is topical and useful for you to grow your businesses. So sometimes we have learning sessions, and sometimes we have interviews with CEOs and business leaders. And today we're lucky enough to have Nick Popovici with us, who's a founder and CEO of a really exciting business in London. But before we start talking to Nick, I just wanted to make some shout outs for some people, because as you've probably noticed, the last 4 months we've been in something called a pandemic. And what we decided to do, I think all of us as a group, is to provide leadership. So not to hand back and watch what was going on, but take things in our own hands and get out there and really make our businesses strong and fit, so we not only survive the pandemic, but thrive the other side. And I have to say, everybody has done an amazing job at doing that. So there's a whole load of people that recently, over the last couple of weeks, have opened their business first. So they were the first in the marketplace. So people like Tash and Ashes from the Ultra Sports Clinic, they were the first to open in London. They're doing great. Gani and Karen from Prezzo, they're opening 35 restaurants in a couple of weeks. Fantastic job. And they're all trading brilliantly well. Harry from Envisage Dental, they were the first guys off the block in terms of private dentistry, and they're doing amazingly as well. And Jack from Applebee's Fish, he's just opened another 50 covers outside his restaurant in Borough Market. Again, first off the block. So well done for taking leadership, guys. Amazing. And then there's loads of people that have invested and grown their business during lockdown. So they haven't sat back or been negative, they've been totally positive. So people like Ben from Ecology by Design has definitely grown his business through the pandemic. Tom and Ben from Three Whiskies have got to over 3.5 or 3.2 million pounds worth of revenue forecast for this year during the pandemic. Aaron from Evergreen, grown his business and take people on during the pandemic. Tom and Holly from Frizzell and Partners, grown their business during the pandemic. Jen from Appetite, grown her business during the pandemic. Janet from Bespoke, grown her business during the pandemic. Luca from Helped grow his business during the pandemic. So loads of examples, and we've got a big list, as you can see. I could probably go on for longer. So I just wanted to make a massive shout out to all you guys who are leading your businesses in the community, creating jobs, and really making sure that the positive energy in the community is strong. So great job. So let's move on to our interview for today. So let me tell you how this is going to work. So I'm going to ask Nick a few difficult questions and some good ones as well, Nick, don't worry, for just 20 minutes. And then we're going to do 20 minutes Q&A. So it's your opportunity to draw out the learnings from Nick's experience. And that's what it's all about, is what can we learn from other people's experiences. So during the first 20 minutes, it'd be great if you could stay on mute, because it's a bit disconcerting when someone's eating breakfast or playing with a dog or whatever it is. So stay on mute for the next 20 minutes. Let's introduce Nick. So Nick is the co-founder and chief executive of Vita Mojo. Nick's been a client of ours for the last 3.5 years, and during that time, him and his partner Stefan have grown a super exciting business in London. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. And Nick, good morning, and a very, very warm welcome to the Business Owners Forum.
Good morning. Excited to be here and nervous because I know you're going to ask some difficult questions and get straight to it as you usually do. So let's see what you got.
Nick's calling in from Valencia this morning, so we don't feel too sorry for you, I'm afraid. But hey, so Nick, why don't you tell everybody when and why you started Vita Mojo and a little bit about yourself and Stefan?
Yeah, so I guess where we started. So my career, I started my career on Wall Street in New York. I was in finance for over 8 years. I was a fund manager managing, I was at BlackRock in New York, and then I moved to London, worked for Schroders. And I managed a $2 billion portfolio of assets. And actually one day I got sick. No one knew what was wrong with me. But long story short, I changed my diet and it changed my life. From that moment on, I had a different perspective on life. And I started looking at the food world, the food ecosystem, and started asking questions of myself, along with Stefan at that time, as like, why hasn't this sector evolved? And maybe if I can share my screen, I'll show you a slide, a chart. But I think you have to enable it. Yeah. I was like, why hasn't this sector, why is the experience that we have in restaurants so old school? When we look around us, we're like, well, how we consume music has evolved so much, from vinyls to cassettes to CDs to just streaming stuff on your phone with one click. Like the pain and the convenience and the friction has been like significantly removed, as well as the value of what we get has increased massively. You just pay £5 a month and you listen to as many songs as opposed to £20 for a CD before. I mean, we've seen huge advancement all around us as humans in as an entertainment, how we get taxis, how we book hotels. Everything had changed, but restaurants still were in the same way where they were 20, 30 years ago. In small parentheses, in finance, I had a very unconventional approach of managing money, which is I used a lot of algorithms and intelligence like AI to do it, as opposed to competing with much more seasoned people with 20 years experience than me and outperforming them because they kind of use the fundamental approach, which was emotion, like gut driven. So I was keen, having seen what technology can do to finance, I was like, why can't we use this technology for good to transform the restaurant experience? And that was the kernel of our idea. I was like, technology is a huge competitive advantage. We want to, Stefan is co-founder, is an engineer by background. We want to use this technology in restaurants to basically transform the sector. So long story short, that's how we came about with Vita Mojo. I should say that the first thing that we did was start a restaurant, because we thought if we apply that technology in a restaurant, we're going to have the best restaurant chain in the world. But later on, we moved to become a full software company. And I'll tell you more about the journey. But I want to show you one chart. Let me see if I can share my screen. Just let me know. Sharing is paused. Let's see what's happening. Can you see my screen?
It says it's starting. There you go. You're on.
There we go.
Yeah.
Excellent. So I just want to show you this chart that might just land home a point, in the sense that this is a McKinsey study, and forget the text on the right, but if you focus on the left-hand side, we have, this is how digitized is a sector. And you can see it's ranked from top to bottom, all the green at the top, and that's like IT, media, professional services, quite digitized, using technology, which means using technology. But if you go all the way at the bottom, you can see agriculture and hunting, not very digitized for obvious reasons, construction, any barely. But hospitality is only just a smidge above it. So, below government, below healthcare. So why we created it is we understand there's a need for the consumer to have a better experience, but also we knew technology can give a competitive advantage to restaurants to be better. So just like tech disrupted taxis or music, it will also disrupt restaurants.
So what does Vita Mojo look like today then, Nick? I mean, tell the guys a little bit about what restaurants you're in and what your software is doing for customers and clients. Yeah,
so in terms of, so what are we, right? I said we started off as a restaurant, and then what we've done is, so we started 5 years ago, and the first 3 years we were a restaurant that built our own technology, which is pretty much unheard of. Even McDonald's today, spending $500 million, they're just starting to build their own tech. They just acquired some company. So we were like, we built their own tech and opened a restaurant. And then we opened another 2. And then we did that to learn. Initially, we thought restaurants is the way and technology is the competitive advantage. Then, having been through it, we realized we're really passionate about building software and using artificial intelligence and doing really cool things. We weren't so passionate about making food, managing real estate, and all the bits that come with it. So what we've done is what are we today? We're a software company that still has one R&D lab where we build software and we test out ideas. So in terms of products, I guess if I would, the key products that we sell are basically digital ordering. So that means mobile ordering, like click and collect for restaurants, or white label on delivery platform. We also have an e-commerce. So this is allowing restaurants to ship like meal box kits or vegetables or groceries or whatever they want to do. We got self-checkout kiosks as probably next to click and collect our second most popular product. And we also have order at pay table, which post-COVID, it is the #1 selling product for us at the moment. And we also have a loyalty app. So this is kind of what we call them digital ordering tools that enable the customer to place an order digitally. And we also have on the fulfillment side, we have an EPOS, we have a kitchen management system, reporting dashboards, and a bunch of integrations to fit nicely into the ecosystem of our clients.
And give us
maybe one to tell about why customers love Vita Mojo. The technology we built, and this is because we've had our own restaurants, we really built it in mind with a win-win. It has to be an equal win for both the customer, the end consumer, the one that comes and eats in the restaurant, and the operator. So we focused a lot of technology on making it beautiful, convenient, less friction, and adding value to the customer, but also for the operator. And what we've seen is when people use technology versus when they order in person, the Net Promoter Score goes up, they lower the labor costs, they spend 15% more on average because we have intelligent upsells and AI inbuilt into the app. The restaurants get the data of the customer, they are able to do CRM with them. And on top of that, we provide them weekly and monthly actionable insights about how to improve their business. I'm just trying to see if there's anything relevant in here to show you. These are just some of the very few clients. There's only so many you can fit on a slide that we work with, but we activate in 2 verticals, QSR and casual dining.
And your amount of customers that you've onboarded recently, Nick, has gone up like exponentially, hasn't it? So why don't you tell everyone the effect of COVID on you? Because for you, COVID's been pretty good now.
Yes. Yes, that's correct. So COVID has been really good for us. And this is a slide that I put together maybe a year ago. This is a slide I shared with our board and explaining like, why are we here? What are we doing? And the reason that is like, we're going to help restaurants transform their profitability with technology. And we know they're on that journey of being digitized. They're just laggards, right? It's not that restaurants are never going to change. It's just that they're some of the last to adopt technology. They have been since the 50s, and they will probably continue to be by just the nature of the sector. So our job is to move the hospitality industry from this bottom third to somewhere in the middle to the high bit over the next 10 years. And there was a bit of a perfect storm in the last few years happening in the UK, but globally, with minimum wage rising, food costs rising, property costs rising, and then a lot of the sales are now restaurants are starting to pay high commission to Deliveroo, Uber, etc. So all that kind of created this perfect storm of like the low margin industry to start with, unlike software, for example, the rapidly increasing costs. The processes are generally outdated, and you have no customer data. So this is before COVID, this was happening, but it was happening at a slower pace. What COVID has done is just accelerated this trend that we were seeing over the next 10 years and kind of brought it forward in about 3 months. So for us, it's been good because we were already on that journey to digitize, and COVID acted as a trigger for restaurants to go, okay, I no longer have a year to find out which one's the best supplier and test it out, and to like, well, we need this to survive and we need it now. So for us, we've been preparing for 5 years for this. It just happened a lot faster than anticipated.
And I'm sure everyone, Nick, from a leadership and management perspective, will be fascinated by the change that you've managed through, because you started off as a restaurant business, a tech-enabled restaurant business. Then you went to 100% full-on software business. And then COVID came along and massively increase the trend. So you went from a relatively slow growth company to a super fast growth company. So at one stage you had a load of restaurant employees. Now you've got loads of engineers, of which I think a third of them or half of them are in a different country as well, in Moldova. So from a management and leadership perspective, how have you and Stefan managed to manage that change and persuade everybody to move in very radically different directions?
Yeah, I think one key concept to mention here is about leadership is we didn't have a culture. We didn't pay attention to it. Culture is just, you know, some buzzword that people talked, and values was something you wrote on the wall and never engaged with. About 2 years ago, a penny dropped, and maybe it was David just constantly constant nudges. But the penny dropped that culture is a competitive advantage. And if you get your culture right and you get everyone to pull in the same direction, to constantly learn and not repeat mistakes, you can go really far, really quickly. So the challenge of pivoting from one business to another and the challenge of growing the team so much has all been, we've been able to keep it together because we overly invested in culture. Case in point, 1.5 years ago, proactively started investing in culture. Maybe I'll give you an example in a second. It took us 9 months to even see some result. And about 6 months in, we're about to give up, to say, it's been 6 months of trying to push this thing up the hill to get people to just be like, take responsibility, act like owners, constantly learn from their mistakes and not repeat them, be aligned, and nothing happened. And I think David's point was like, just don't give up yet, right? And it took 9 months to see anything, 1 year to see a difference. But what that meant is when we started 2020, the year, after 1 year, this all started to gel and work, and everyone in the company, all our 55 employees, started to get it. And also we've been able to grow and work so much better together because of that culture. So maybe a small note for everyone is we did this thing called game rules, where this is inspired by a speech David gave to our leadership team about like how the All Blacks have basically their own game rules. So we inspired by, we created our own game rules, and these are we have 4 game rules. We came up with like 20, but narrowed it to the top 4. And we have one of the key ones to mention is flying information, which is a game rule around being aligned, constantly communicate with each other, support the leader. If you're a leader, listen to the people behind. And it's a concept that birds that fly in formation, like migratory birds, fly much further than they could ever fly by themselves. So by creating these game rules, getting a buy-in of every single person in the company into the game rules by co-creating them, and then operationalizing them by recognizing people on a weekly basis that lived up to the game rules, and doing that for 1 year consistently has transformed the culture.
And making new mistakes, Nick, I mean, that's a fascinating one, because that's really allowed you to learn fast, hasn't it? Because you're in a new industry, creating new products for user cases that didn't exist. So you're right at the forefront of innovation of technology. So what does making new mistakes mean?
Yeah, it's a good one. As you said, like we're trailblazers. We are creating a product and a need for product that the market didn't think it needed 5 years ago when we started. But so we're in a business, we're building something new. So it's crucial to empower every one of our staff to take risks, to put stuff out there and not be afraid of it failing. The only condition is just don't repeat that mistake. Learn from it. Pause, reflect, run a retrospective, and keep going. So key to a culture of innovators, it is to make mistakes and not get the mindset of every employee is that it's okay to make a new mistake. It's not okay to make an old mistake. And that has allowed us to just be bold and continuously try things that, I remember when we started 5 years ago in a restaurant, we went look at all the things what restaurants do. They're like, cash. Why would you take cash? That's a pain. You need a safe. It's dirty. You have to take to the bank. The bank will charge you money. Because like we go to cashless. And this is before contactless. We got written up in every newspaper like first restaurant goes cashless. And like post-COVID, everyone's cashless. So, but that was an example of something we weren't afraid to fail, and that allowed us to take bold risks.
Yeah, that's a great example of how culture totally moves the business forward. One other thing I want to touch on, which is probably not unique to you, but you've invested a lot of money in this, because this is a tech business that required you to build a team of 55, build technology for people that didn't know they wanted it yet. So how have you funded the business, Nick? Tell the guys how you've raised funds for this.
Yeah, so funding is it's a game. We've raised 14 million pounds to date over a series of rounds. Vast 95% of that in 2 rounds, a 3 million pound round, which we crowdfunded, went on Crowdcube. And we raised 3 million, and then we did a VC investment for 10 million pounds about 2 years ago. So what can I say about fundraising is we must have had over 120 people we've approached to get one investor. And it's a pretty demoralizing experience, because of 120, 119 said no, and the 120th said yes. And if you would have given up at 50, we would not be in business today. If we given up at 100, we would not be in business today. If we got 118, we would not have been in business today. So I guess one thing to think about fundraising is that it's just a numbers game, and you just got to find someone to fall in love with you. And you just need one person.
That's like life, Nick, isn't it?
It is like dating. It's no different than dating, to be honest, until you find your partner.
So, Nick, I mean, you've got great momentum. Where's Vita Mojo going to be in a year from now? I mean, it's growing super strongly now. What's your vision?
Yeah, so yeah, we're growing incredibly fast, working with largest chains. There's a lot of clients I can't actually talk about yet because we're under NDA and stuff. But yeah, we're probably going to be around 3 million pounds in annual recurring revenue in the next 9 months, maybe 12, and be very close to our break-even point. So a tech startup, as you read in the news, are aware, they burn a lot of money because software is very expensive before you build it, and then you start selling it to enough people to start covering those costs. That's what you need all the money for. We're very close to hitting our profitability point in the next 12 months, which officially we're no longer a startup. It would be a credible company, let's say.
Fantastic. Well, if you don't mind, Nick, I'm sure there's a lot of people on the call that would love to ask you some questions. So maybe if you could stop sharing your screen, and then we can throw it open for questions.
Excellent.
So who would like to ask Nick a question?
I've got one, David. It's Nick.
Nick. Go ahead, Nick.
Hi, Nick.
Hi, as a fellow Nicholas, I'm sure. How do you get your, obviously it's a fantastic products and service range you have there. How do you get it to the market? Do you have your own salespeople? Do you use a reseller model? How do you want to get this out to more and more restaurants and more opportunities?
Yeah, so we went for a direct sales model with our own sales team. We invested a lot in trade fairs and PR, the targeted PR to our industry. So things that are particular to it. We're not yet using the reseller model. You can, but for us, it's something we're going to do for other markets. So the US right now, we've launched in the US, but we're looking to partner with someone to be a reseller for us. So for the core market, it's hard to have a reseller until you know how to sell your product best. Once you figure that out, you can then productionalize it and then teach other people how to sell it. For the last 3 years, we've been learning ourselves how to sell it. We've hit product market fit late last year. And only after you hit product market fit, I think for me, is you can start using a reseller network they can kind of copy and paste. But not to discourage you from using it earlier, but that's, yeah. And it's for us, it happens to be a very small market in the UK because everyone knows each other. So word of mouth, once you penetrate key clients like we work with, for example, Leon, like that opened the door to so many more, and then Yo Sushi to more doors. And so landing a few big clients early on allows you to open many doors.
Thank you.
But this is specific to a market that has maybe about 200 chains in, and we're targeting 200 chains.
Thank you. Who else would like to ask a question for Nick? Just shout. Tom, go ahead, Tom.
Hi, David. Hi, Nick. Thanks for the presentation and congratulations on the success so far. My question was on the software development side, have you done that all in-house or have you outsourced some or all of that to providers in Eastern Europe or Asia? As it seems we've looked at some software development and it's quite difficult in our experience to get the balance right where you get it developed.
Yeah, when we started as a restaurant, we did some of it in-house, some of it we outsourced to a company to do it for us. We found that incredibly painful and slow and not necessarily aligned. And even when we were a restaurant, we brought it back in-house quite quickly. We did use offshore teams ourselves that were much cheaper. So instead of hiring all the developers in London, we use Moldova, like a fraction of the cost per developer. Now that we're a pure software company, there's no way we'd outsource anything. That's our IP and that's our bread and butter. Outsourcing works depends how core is tech to your business, as I'd say. If you're a tech company, outsourcing probably not going to be the best thing. If you're a different company that are tech enabled, outsourcing could be a viable strategy. But I need to understand more. Maybe what do you do really quickly? Maybe I can try to.
Sure, we're in sports and entertainment, so we've been looking at software to assist with guest programs, guest management and communications. So, for example, a simple platform for guests that are coming to a big sporting event to get information about that, to plug in their details, arrange for their local transportation and get details around the event. And then once you're in event, it's probably similar to your side of things in terms of, making their preferences for food, gifts, merchandise, that type of thing.
And you're in the business of selling that software or in the business of organizing events and managing?
We're on the event side.
Right. So it seems like event side that would benefit from technology. I would say for that, look for platforms that already exist that may be able to buy and resell or incorporate in your platform. That's probably the first thing I would do. If that doesn't exist, then I would go to a specialized software provider that's done similar things for different industries. And only third, I would try to do it myself because it's expensive. And if you don't have economies of scale, you're going to need tons of funds to even keep that going.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
That's how I think of it. But yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Who else would like to ask a question?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Tom. Go for it.
Another Tom.
Yeah,
Great
I'm off the top.
presentation, Nick. And yeah, just you mentioned very early on about how you changed your diet and how that changed your life and your focus. I just wondered if you could maybe elaborate a bit on that. It's something that I've found that's been a massive change to my productivity and output and things, and something I want to introduce to staff as well. I'm starting to.
Yeah, so interesting enough, when I went to the doc, I lost a lot of weight, and I had all this kind of pain and health issues, and I went to the doctor. They're like, first they thought I'm dying, then they thought I've definitely some terminal cancer. Having ruled all those out, and after 6 months of doing all the tests in the world, and at a period where they said, actually, we don't know what's wrong with you. It's probably your stomach. Let's say that gastroenterology and the science of microbiome and how we digest food is really little understood. There's been very little funding to it, as opposed to funding for heart attacks and that stuff. And to this day, there's no test you could do to tell you what's wrong with you. The number one thing that I've done, which is called an elimination diet, where you end up with you start with a very basic diet, very safe foods like rice, carrots, whatever, and then you keep introducing items every few days and seeing how you feel, and then removing them if they're bad. And again, it takes another 6 months to get to a point where you can figure out what are the things. For me, with things like, and these would be a shock, and gluten, which is bad for everyone generally, depends on the quantity you have and how strong your gut is. Sugar, for me, like really bad impact. And then food with preservatives, like stuff that has nitrates and stuff in it. So those are the three things that for me were very debilitating, not aware of. And not when I got better, not only so let's say I was here before, I got sick, so I went down here. After I figured out my diet, I not only got here, and I realized for the previous 10 years, I've been operating at 67% of my potential. And the amount of energy I have today is incredible versus what I had before. So diet is a competitive advantage as well, in my opinion, at the individual level. But there's no simple way of telling what your diet should be, and it's different for every person. That's the thing. Like one size fits all does not work here.
I found that DNA testing is really useful for that. So I was playing around with different diets and things, but I had some DNA testing done earlier this year, and I found that sort of reflected a lot of the things that I'd found through trial and error, just poking around in the dark. But yeah, that's been really useful for determining things that you're sensitive to.
Yeah, definitely. So DNA, things that do help is DNA testing, but it's only a fraction of the whole picture, but it's helpful. Remember, your DNA test will tell you what your DNA is, but it doesn't tell you which one of those proteins have actually manifested in your body. So it's a good clue about some things, which is great. It will tell you nothing about preservatives, for example, in a DNA test. Trust me, I've done everything out there. So it's a good start, but you got to keep being curious, right? And trying things out, because they're just the tip of the iceberg.
I think the key point here, guys, is it's absolutely true, is those business owners that spend time on themselves, making sure they're in really good fit state, their businesses grow faster because they're just performing at a higher rate. So yeah, you can't split health and fitness from business. It's the same thing as a business owner. You really got to do both.
Yeah, and I think that the talking on productivity hacks, like health, diet is super important. And again, a diet's a personalized thing. We have all the research to prove that. But the other thing that is universal and everyone can do on this call is if you do 15 minutes, I mean it, just 15 minutes of exercise Monday to Friday, first thing in the morning, There just needs to be high intensity. So you can do a skip rope, you can do a bit of like sprinting, burpees, jumps, like jumping jacks. If you do 15 minutes, just 15 minutes of that every morning, your stamina and energy level grows so much. I've started doing consistently since January, and I have another 2 hours of my day of productive time. So before around like 6:30, I'll just be like just having to wind down. I can go until 8:30 without food and just maintain at a very high level. So there are silver bullets, but of course you have to put in the time for it.
Okay, so I'm going to send an alarm call to everybody tomorrow at 6:30 in the morning, right?
It's only 7:30 in Spain, so it's fine for me.
I think we've probably got time for one more question. Anyone else would like to ask Nick a question? Nigel, go for it.
Hi, Nick. It was brilliant presentation. Thank you very much for sharing the insights. What I really found powerful was your talk about culture as a competitive advantage. I was keen to understand whether you developed that with the team, i.e. bottom up, or you imposed it on your team as an owner. This is how we're going to be.
Yeah, so great question. It's a very delicate process. It will never work if you impose it. But on the other hand, when you have 55 employees, doing a bottom up is never going to end up there. So how we've done it is the two founders, Stefan and I, spent a lot of time really uncovering and aligning what are the things we value the most. What is us? How do we behave with each other? What's so good about it? And trying to codify that. And then we split the organization in two additional levels. Number one is a senior leadership team. So this is probably about 6 to 8 people. We actually ended up having 10 in the end. And then the rest of the company. So it's like the two of us, 10 people, and then 45 people, if you think of it. What we've done is the two of us have came up with just concepts. Then we bottom up with the leadership team, what our values should be. And then we ended up with these 4. And then what we've done is we didn't impose it on the everyone else in the company. We would say, look, this is a draft. Let's discuss. What does this mean for you? Get feedback from them, hear them out, write it on the wall, write the feedback on the wall. And then based on that, tweak. And then last thing that we did is once we agreed what were the 4 game rules, we wrote down for every game rule how we talk, how we behave, and a story about it. I told you about the flying formation. So we let the people at the bottom level to actually write, to really co-create what that really means for them and the company. And the next step we're about to do is actually have each department write their own interpretation. What does that mean for their own department? What does fly information mean for the sales team? How do they communicate? How they behave? And what's the story? So a very good question. And the most difficult thing to get right is buy-in comes when people have a say in it. But balancing that out is kind of the secret. Not the secret, but the challenge of it.
That's great. So Nick, I'm going to ask you the
I'm giving away all of David's secrets, right? So, but I'm sure if you ask David, he will tell you these things because I just stole it from him. So,
so Nick, just for the last couple of minutes, the last question is for me to say, look, if you're advising someone based on everything you've learned, and you're advising somebody who wanted to create this super fast growth company, what were the 2 or 3 things you advise them to do? Top 3.
I'll answer a different question than I'll answer that specific question. Every time we meet a restaurant who we're trying to open their mind and talk about change and what the thing they need to do. We tell restaurants, be bold, be a restaurant of the future. There's actually a slide I was showing my presentation at the end. I'm gonna answer your question, David, right? What advice I get? I would give a similar advice in the same spirit to you. I say, go bold, go fast, and get a coach. And the reason I'm saying to get a coach is because obviously Stefan and I have been transformed, and our company is only as good as we have been able to grow. And having a coach that constantly challenges you, pushes you to grow, and is also a safe space for you to feel like there's someone to talk to, because sitting at the top is a lonely place. From a mindset perspective, from a growth perspective, I'd say is the number one thing that contributes to our success. And there's no way I'd start another business without a coach. David's one of the coaches. I'm sure there's other coaches in the world. This is not a pitch for David. I'm saying if high performance teams all have a coach, right? Basketball, football teams, rugby teams, why shouldn't you have a coach, right? And that for me is a very powerful tool you can engage with. So, but that if you're not going to go bold, then you're not going to go fast. Maybe you don't need a coach. But if you do have big ambitions, I'd say that's a must.
Nick, thank you so much for sharing your valuable time with us today. I'm sure everyone got a lot out of it. So thank you everyone for joining us today, this morning, because I know everyone's got valuable time. We're back in 2 weeks' time. So stay safe, be bold, and get a coach. So bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Real
Nick.
pleasure to meet you and to have been invited. It's been an honor. Thank you, David.
Thanks,
Have a great
Nick.
day, everyone.
Bye-bye.